of how to walk down the steps. All right. Okay. So glad you guys are here, man. I'm telling you, after those 2 to 3 weeks that we didn't have Kinetic, I really missed you guys. And then you guys like come back and you came back strong. We had like 70 teens last week, and you guys maybe you're on the same number or this week. So yeah, I'm thankful you guys are here. It's always good to see you guys. Hopefully you guys are enjoying small group. If you do not enjoy small group, I don't know what to tell you. But happy you guys are here. So we're going to be continuing our series. We're going to be finishing the series next week. This is our underdog series. And so when we talk about underdogs, we're talking about people that maybe not the ones that are look like they're going to win the battle or look like they're going to come out on top, but yet they do anyway. And, you know, we have so many people in the Bible that were the underdogs that didn't look like they would win or shouldn't win, and they ended up coming out on top and defeating whatever obstacle they were against. And last week, we talked about David and Goliath and how David, he was a teenage boy, and he's meant to fight this big, massive warrior who was like 8 feet tall, or 7 feet tall, and strong as an ox, and fought many, many battles. And you have David, who's never fought anyone in his life, and he's the youngest of a family of like 8 or so, and he defeats this giant. And then the main point was that at the end of it, he told Goliath as he was going to fight him, as he's going to, knock him out. He said, I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm going to knock you out, and then I'm going to cut off your head. And the reason why he wanted to do that is to make sure that his giant was dead. And so I challenge you guys to kill your giants, to be a giant killer in your walk with God, in your personal life, to not let giants come back around. And so tonight, we were going to talk about a different guy in the Bible, but I really wanted to do something for my ladies, because I feel like the Bible has a lot of stories about guys overcoming and being the greatest, and guys are kind of jerks in this culture, and I really wanted to talk about a woman who overcame it all. And so, ladies, this one is for you guys, and it's for you to feel empowered and encouraged, and boys, you can get something out of this too, because this applies for everybody, but mostly my girls. So, last week, like I said, we're talking about David and Goliath, and I've hinted at Saul. I don't know if you guys remember Saul, and he was the first king of the Bible. And Saul, he was anointed king by the people and by God. The people of Israel, who he was king over, really wanted a king. They wanted to be like everybody else. And so they anointed Saul, and Samuel was a prophet who anointed Saul. And so Saul, he was like the tallest guy. He was the best looking, came from a really rich family, and just had a rich background in the tribe of Israel. And so he was like the clear-cut winner. And so Saul, he's anointed king. But then that's why David came in the picture, because Saul wasn't that great of a king. And God said he was kind of sad that he made Saul king. And so God, he removed Saul as king. But the reason why is because there was a time when Saul was told to go defeat his giant. And his giant was in the form of a tribe. They were called the Amalekites, kind of a weird name. And so Saul, he was told to go destroy everything in this tribe. And what that means is that he was meant to kill the men, the women, the children, the animals. He was meant to destroy homes and just ground everything into dust, like destroy it. There should be nothing left. It's like defeating his giant, making sure that his giant will never come back. And so Saul, he goes and he starts war with these people, but he leaves some of the best animals, because these could be used for food. They could be used for helping other people. And he left some of the gold and silver because, that's profitable. We can give that to God. We can give this good stuff to God, put it in a church, and they can add on to it. And then he left, some of the women, because, they were pretty. And then he left the king of the Amalekites, the one who conspired against Israel, because the Amalekites hated Israel. In fact, the reason why God wanted to destroy them is because they constantly wanted to overrun the Jews, or the Israelites, who were the Jews. They wanted to destroy them. They were always in battle, always picking on them. They were bullies. And so God said, you know what, I'm just going to take care of this. Saul, go defeat every single one of them. They're wiped out from this day forward. Because God was going to do that for the people of Israel, for his people. But Saul didn't do that. In fact, he kept the one person that he should have killed alive, the king. And that king's name was Agag, super weird name. And so that is important going into our story. And so fast forward, you have this girl named Esther. And Esther plays a pivotal part for this whole message of who she is. And so leading up to that point, you have this king, it's like Ahasuerus. It's such a tongue-twisting name. So we're just going to call him King A, instead of pronouncing his name the 37 times I have to say it tonight. So King A. King A, he loved himself. And in fact, he spent 180 days dedicated to making the people know how good of a king he was. And so he, for 180 days, he just, partied it up. He wanted people to know how good he was, all his accomplishments, how rich he was, and just how amazing he was. And so then, at the end of that 180 days, he wanted to have a feast for 7 days straight, or basically have a huge dinner every single night for 7 days. So he did that. And during that time, he brought in all his king buddies from different countries. He brought in the people that served under him, his best friends, people from the town, anybody that would just come and observe how great he was. And then on the last night, for 7 days straight, they've been drinking a lot of alcohol, eating a lot of food, so they're pretty drunk, not going to lie. And then, like King A, he has this idea to call his wife in, who is Queen Vashti. And Queen Vashti, she is called in to just walk in front of the men that are there. King A is like, I have a really hot wife, and I want her to come in here. And normally in that culture, what happened was when a queen came in, she had to do a dance. There was a dance that the queen knew. It was something to be seductive, to please those that are watching her. And so the queen was meant to do this dance. And she refused. And that could cost her her life. And so I just want to break down maybe what happened. While she's not the focal point of our story, she is an underdog to be honored. So Queen Vashti, she is throwing her own party. She's doing her own feast for her friends. And then she's told of all the things her husband is doing with all this drinking and having fun, and they're pretty wasted. And then she's told that she's supposed to come in and dance before a bunch of drunk men who are filled with power, think that they're the best beings on earth. Imagine how she felt. And for guys, probably never understand how that feels. I will never understand that embarrassment, but I think my ladies might be able to understand the embarrassment that may have come with that. Being an object, being objectified just because you're pretty, and being stared at by a bunch of drunk men. And so she refused, and she stood up. And my first point through all this, even though she isn't the focal point, is that girls, you are royalty. Don't let guys make you feel otherwise. So some of you guys in here are in relationships or wanting to be in one eventually, and my ladies, you're the ones that are supposed to be pursued. Please don't let guys tell you what you should or shouldn't do. You'd be more pretty if you did this, or you know what? I would love you so much if you did this for me. Don't fall for that. You are a queen. You're a royalty. You were made by the creator of the universe. You don't have to listen to anything these boys say to you when it comes to what you should or shouldn't do to be beautiful, to be accepted. Be like a Queen Vashti in the sense that you have respect for yourself. You aren't going to sit there and be an object for boys. Just my little caveat. So then, King A, he gets pretty ticked off because, he's his man of power. He's just got done exalting himself, saying how great he was, and then his queen just disrespects him in front of everybody. So he's super ticked. And what he does is he consults his people, and they're like, you know what? She can never come back here ever again because of other women here that Queen Vashti just ignored you. They're going to ignore their husbands. Very misogynistic. And so, the king is like, she can never be here ever again. So she's got to be kicked out because we can't have women opposing their husbands because that's just wrong. That is not wrong, just letting you know. But in that culture, it was. So what the king does, he decides to have an episode of The Bachelor to where he goes through the town and he's like, I want the best women to want me. And so go find the prettiest women you can find, and they're going to try to win my affection. True story. Episode of The Bachelor. And then that's when Esther comes into the picture. So you have Esther. She is a very, very ordinary girl. She doesn't come from royalty. She's actually an orphan. Esther's parents died, and her cousin, Mordecai, is actually raising her. And so she doesn't really have a family. She doesn't have like a heritage background, which is super important in that day. She doesn't have money. She doesn't really have popularity in this culture because women weren't really revered, weren't really respected, and so that automatically puts her at a nod. And so her cousin, goes up and says, you really need to do this contest. You really need to go on this episode of The Bachelor, win this king's heart, and then, this will change your life. And so, they go through all of this stuff, and she gets pampered for like a year and, hangs out with the king, and he really likes her, and then, bam, she becomes queen. Total underdog story right there. I could end it right there. And what I want to say about that, I think my slides might have been messed up, is that God uses the ordinary. And I think that we at times feel that we have to look a certain way to be used by God, that we have to act a certain way. If I don't go to church this amount of times, or if, I don't read my Bible, or I'm not as saved as the other person, I'm not as righteous as the other person, I'm not good enough. And God could never use someone like me. I see the person raising their hands. I see the person, in small group, they have these super long prayers, or I know that they read the Bible a lot more than I do. And God uses the ordinary. God uses the ones that don't feel like they're great enough. God uses the ones that society doesn't care about. God uses the ordinary. And so don't feel like you are too far off to be used by God. And so as the story goes on, there's this guy named Haman. And Haman, he is from a certain tribe of people. So Haman is actually the right-hand man for the king. He is told, like, hey, you've gotten a promotion. You get to be my best friend, basically. You get to do everything I do. Basically, your word is gold. So Haman was super pumped up about this. He's excited, and so he's walking in the streets, and people are bowing down to him, like, oh, man, you're the man. I remember, like, when you didn't really have this position, and you were kind of a nerd, but now I can't say that or else I'd die, so, like, you're a great guy. And people really respected him, except for one person, Mordecai, Esther's cousin. He didn't want to bow down to him, didn't really want to worship him because he worshiped God. And the funny thing about Haman is that Haman was from the tribe of the Agagites. Yeah, super weird name again. But their ancestor, their leader, was Agag, who was the king of the Amalekites. And so what happened was that after King Agag, he got spared, his life got spared, he was able to have children, and the people that were in his tribe, they had more and more and more. And thus, that's where Haman comes into the picture, because Saul spared the Amalekites. And so, King Agag obviously eventually died, but this is where Haman comes in. And Haman knows that the Jews tried to wipe out his bloodline. And so when he saw Mordecai not worshiping him, we found out that he was a Jew. And that made him even more ticked off. Really, this all stems from Saul's disobedience to not kill his giant in his life. My point with that is, what you don't kill will come back stronger to kill you. And so realize that when we talked last week about giants and how we need to kill the giants in our lives, we need to make sure that they're not just laying unconscious, but we really need to get rid of them, is that we need to realize is that the giants in our lives will come back if we do not destroy them. And so Saul's giant came back, and he wanted to destroy the whole Jewish nation because Saul didn't take care of the job the first time. So it came back, and it came back to destroy them. And so Haman, what he decided to do, since Mordecai was a Jew, he went to the king, and he said, you know what, King A, there's some nasty people that we just don't really need in our culture right now. They don't talk like us. They don't really walk like us. They don't look like us. They're different. We just need to get rid of them. We just need to destroy them. In fact, let's just get rid of that whole race. And, I think their names are the Jews. I don't know. And so King A was like, yeah, like, I think that that's great. Like, let's do that. And didn't really think twice about it. And so what happens is the Jews start hearing this, that they're about to die, that they're about to get destroyed. And Mordecai hears of that. And what he does is he goes to the entrance of the palace, because he's not allowed in the entrance of the palace, like, to enter in. Esther's not allowed to go out to him because she's royalty. She doesn't go out into the city like that. And so he starts crying, and he's hoping that he'll be able to talk to Esther. Finally, Esther, she realizes Mordecai is out there, her cousin. She sends a servant to go talk to him, and the servants going back and forth relaying messages, and Mordecai saying, you know what? This guy, your buddy in the palace, is trying to kill us. Haman, he wants us dead. He wants to destroy us, and there's a decree by the king, your husband, to kill all of us, your whole family, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, every single person. And Esther's like, I don't really know what to do. Like, I can't do anything. Like, what do you want me to do? I don't have the power to stop this. And what Mordecai says is really powerful. So in Esther 4:13 through 16, he says, then Mordecai told them, the people that were going back and forth, to reply to Esther, do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf. Do not eat or drink for these 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So the first point is that Mordecai encouraged Esther to take a stand. She was created for such a time as this. And so last week I encouraged you guys to not let people look down on you just because you're young. Just because you're a teenager, don't let people say that you can't make a movement, that you can't make an impact on this world. It says that you were created for such a time as this. You can impact the world. Your voice can be heard. I look at our nation and I see how we're so divided, how it's like we hate each other. You can make a difference. I look at how the church is perceived with so much hate and so much bigotry, yet you can make a difference. I see kids that are bullied every single day that feel like they have no worth, and they turn to drugs or they turn to hurting themselves. You can make a difference. You can take a stand. You were created for such a time as this. Just because you may not feel like you're significant, like you have nothing to offer, you can change a life. You can take a stand. You can do what it takes. Don't feel like you can't take a stand like Esther did. She said, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything about this. Mordecai said, you were sent there for such a time as this. You were sent for 2021. You were sent for 2020. What are you going to do with it this year? What changes do you want to see happen? How are you going to help other people? How are you going to love other people? How are you going to tell others about Christ? How are you going to show your faith? You can do this. But then Esther, her reply was, you know what, I'm encouraged. And, she told them to go fast. And what that means is a religious word for not eating. And normally you would do that. You would fast throughout the day or not eat throughout the day. And you would pray when you're hungry. And then around 6 or 7 p.m. you could eat and you could drink normally very simple foods. But she said, I'm not going to eat at all or drink anything for 3 days. And why you do that, so that way you can grow closer to God. And those times when you're hungry, you start praying. You ask God for strength. You ask God for wisdom. And so what she's saying is, during these times, I want you to go and pray. I want you to get weak physically so that way you can get strong spiritually. And I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to seek God about what I should do. But what she says is, I'm going to go to the king, even though it's against the law, and if I die, I die. So when you find out, I need to take a stand, what are you willing to do to take that stand? Are you willing to take a stand for some things but not others? Is it weird to talk about your faith, just bringing it up casually to a random stranger? Or do you only want people to talk to you about God? You're not willing to talk to them? Are you willing to go on that mission trip that seems really out of your comfort zone? Are you willing to do whatever it takes, even if it may cost you popularity, even if it may cost you some friends? You're willing to do what it takes no matter the cost. Are you going to say, you know what, God, I love you, and I'm willing to go to youth group where other Christians are at, but I really don't want to talk about my faith, or I don't really want to change this about me. I don't want to start new habits. I don't want to give this up. What are you willing to get rid of in your life? How far are you willing to go for God? So then, the 3 days comes and goes, and Esther is faced with responsibility of saving a nation, saving all of her people. You have this young girl who doesn't have any parents, no one to really talk to about this. She has Mordecai on the outside of the gate. She can't even see him. and she's faced with saving a whole nation. You talk about responsibility. You talk about, the come up to where she went from knowing nobody to having nothing to having the responsibility of the world on her shoulders and saving thousands of people. So then what she decides to do is she decides to have a feast. So she goes to the king, King A, and she says, I don't really know how to go about this, because if she goes before the king without his approval, very male-dominated society, he could have her killed. He could actually cut off her head. And so she is faced with, do I go in front of the king without him summoning me, or do I wait? And so what she decides to do is she goes and she waits at the door frame of where he's at the palace, and he's sitting on the throne, and she's waiting. Will he order me to be dead or not? He already kicked King Vashti out because she didn't appear and didn't do the things he says, and I'm willingly going against the law, so am I going to die? And so he actually shows her some mercy and says, come on in, and they start talking, and she said, I have a favor to ask. So he says, you know what do you want? I'm willing to give you whatever you want. You're my wife. You're my boo. I love you. And so, she's like, hey, I really want to throw you some a feast, a dinner. I want to make dinner for you. And girls, pay attention, because this is the way to a man's heart. He gets excited. He's like, yeah, I would like some food. She's like, all right, and then bring your buddy Haman as well. Bring him to the feast. And so, he's like, yeah, I get free food. I get a home-cooked meal, and I get my best friend there. So then, the next day, and, they have this feast, and they're excited. They're happy. They're drinking. He's all in love. So then he's like, Esther, come on out. Like, what is it that you want? She says, you know what? I'll tell you tomorrow, but I'd really like to throw you another feast. Girls, take note. I'm telling you, way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And so she decides to throw him another feast. And she's like, invite Haman. And Haman, what he does is he goes home after that, and he thinks that he is the best guy on earth. He's like, you know what? I'm going to invite my friends over to my house tonight. I'm going to invite friends, family. My wife is going to be there, and we're going to throw a party in my favor. You know what? I've been so good. I remember, when I was nothing. Because remember, Haman really came from nothing. He is an underdog story as well. His whole family was destroyed, his whole bloodline. He came from a little-known tribe that just started. He would not have any reputation. And yet he rose through the ranks and became the king's right-hand man. That's an underdog story. But yet what he does is he says how great he is, how amazing he is. He said, even the queen is going to feed me on the best there is. Look at how far I've come. What I want to say about that is that Haman made it all about himself, everything that he acquired. I'm telling you, use what God has given you to glorify him, not yourself. Everything that we have, God has given us, whether it's our popularity, whether it's financial gain, whether it's our accolades in sports, or how smart we are. And yes, you can practice to get better. You can study to get smarter. But God gave you the brain that you have. God gave you the talents and the skills that you have currently. And those are his. And what we're supposed to do is to use those to glorify God, not ourselves. It's not about how smart you are, how great you are, how attractive you are, how popular you are. It's about what can I do to glorify God with the things he's given me? What can I do with this popularity? What can I do with the circle of friends God has given me? What can I do with this talent in this sport or this activity? What can I do with my creativeness that God has given me? What can I do with this hard-working mentality? What can I do with the love I have for other people? And Haman decided to make it all about himself, how great he was. The Bible says that pride goes before a fall, meaning that when you're really prideful like that, you're going to hit your face hard. And so the next day comes, and, Haman, he's, walking into that palace. He's getting ready to eat, and they eat. And the King A, he's super excited again. He's like, food. And so he eats and he drinks, and then he calls his wife in. Like, tell me, what's on your mind? What's this favor that you want? Cook me 2 meals. Ladies, pay attention to that. And he's like, what do you want? I'm willing to give you anything you want. And she said, there's a guy that has tried to kill my whole family. And he conspired against me to destroy us and to get rid of us. And my family's in danger. And the king was outraged because he just got 2 home-cooked meals 2 nights in a row from a woman that he loves. And he's outraged. And he says, who is this man? Haman, he's kind of in the corner. He's like, uh-oh. And gets ready, gets up to get walking. And Esther says, it's Haman. He conspired to kill all the Jews. hates us and he wanted to destroy me and my family. So King A is outraged. Haman's running, trying to flee for his life. And, Esther's laying down and he falls down and, lands next to Esther, which makes King A even more mad because why are you laying next to my wife? You're about to die for sure. And so sure enough, King Haman dies. He's killed in front of all the people for everyone to see. So then that could have been good enough. It could have been it. To where, King Haman's dead. This is it. But she needed to finish what she started. And so she went before the king again, risking her life and saying, I need one more favor. You've been so gracious to me, just one more. You signed this decree that Haman started up to kill my family and my friends and everybody I know. Can you please go against that? And that is a big thing, to have the king go against something that he wrote. It means that he's changed his mind, means that he's not stable, means that maybe he's not thinking right. And so that would be embarrassing to a king, especially someone that feels so great about themselves. But yet instantly he says, yeah, of course, I'll go against that. And she finished her story. And as I call the worship team up, I have 3 points I want you guys to take with you. And the first one is, to fight the battle you're called to fight. Esther was told that you were made for such a time as this. It means that she was meant for this battle. She was meant to risk her life for the king. She was meant to go and fight for these people. This was her battle. What is your battle? What are you called to fight against? What is it in your life that you need to fight? Just like we talked about last week, what is your giant? What is your battle? What temptation, what struggle? Is it mental? Is it spiritual? Is it physical? What things do you have to fight against? The next one is, humble yourself before people. Take a note from Haman to where he got all excited about who he was with the opportunities he was given, and he glorified himself. But yet Queen Esther, what's interesting is that she still served Haman. And I can't imagine praying to God and seeking God, saying, this man wants my life, and God saying, I need you to cook him a meal. I need you to feed him. Well, can I poison the meal? No, you can't poison the meal. And having to serve this man twice that wanted her dead, that threatened her family. I can't imagine that, but yet she humbled herself for God. And then the last part is to win the war. You're going to lose a lot of battles. There's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to fight against. There's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to battle against, but win the war. Don't give up on the war. Sometimes the war means that you have to start new habits. You have to get rid of habits, that you have to admit that some of the things you're doing are toxic in your life. Sometimes winning a war means fighting against those things that you want to do, where it's so easy to just do the temptation, to give into pornography, to give into drugs, to give into depression, just let it all happen. It's so easy. Fight the battles, win the war. Do not give up on yourself. Because there is a Savior who died 2,000 years ago that looked at you and said that you are worthy of the battle, you are worthy of the war that you're going to win. Jesus will always protect you. And I say that with confidence. And guys, this has been the hardest week of my life. Hardest week of my life. And I am in the battle and I am believing God for the victory of the war. But I can't see it. I can't see the victory right now. But I'm fighting my battles, and I've lost a lot of battles along the way. But I'm in it for the long haul. And I'm going to lose a lot more battles, guys. I'm not perfect. I don't read my Bible every day, despite what you may think. I'm not on my knees praying 24/7, despite what you may think.